Okay, so I would label it in your notebook as one step in equalities. Why? Because that way you know this is where your notes are starting for this. And I wish I had like a little tab for you guys. Oh, I actually do. So wherever you're starting your notes for this, you're putting them in your binder, right? That way when we go to take our quiz or anything you might need for this, you know exactly where you need to go back to. Oh, hold on, I gotta cut this.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, because I was like, how can I conserve this?
Oh, it wants to.
Okay, so I'm giving you the little tab so that way you guys know where to start your notes on these. Those of you at home, I'll go ahead and give you a tab when you get here next week. I'll probably print some out over the weekend and you guys will get new ones when you come in on Wednesday because I want to make them a little bit harder so that way it's easier for you to kind of flip to and so it doesn't fall off. Okay, so inequalities. Inequalities are a mathematical statement that two values are not equal. There are 5 ways to express an inequality, and in your little piece of note that we're going to pass around in a few minutes, these are going to be on it. So we are not working with this one this year. We are working with less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. So usually when I read an inequality, I'll read it from left to right. And how I like to read it is when the mouth is open. So if I'm reading it from left to right, when it's open, I'm going to say greater than. If it's closed on that side, then I would say less than. Thank you. Okay, so this is what you're getting in your notebooks. Inequalities on a number line. So it gives you an example, it reads it to you, and it shows you how we would put it on a number line. So a couple things. So the blue side is where we have just the greater than or equal to. So when you have the greater than sign or the less than sign, when you graph it on a number line, you're going to graph it with an open circle, okay? And it goes ahead and it tells you that there. When you have the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, you're going to graph it with the closed circle. What does that mean? When you have x is greater than a number, if something is greater than, would that include the number? So if I say Santiago has a greater amount of strawberries than I do, is it possible for her to have the same amount of strawberries as me? No. It would mean that she has more strawberries than me. So I'm not going to include the number, which is why I do an open circle. If I said Santiago has more strawberries or the same amount of strawberries than me, which would mean greater than or equal to, does that mean she could have the same strawberries as me? Which is why I do a closed circle, because it's possible for her to have the same amount of strawberries as me. Okay, so we're going to look at graphing. So let's go ahead and compare. We just came off doing equations. Remember, when we did equations, we were using that equal sign. Now with inequalities, we're looking at our greater than, equal to, greater than, less than signs. So I want you to take a second and think about the questions that this page is asking you and try to answer them. So I want you to take a second to think about what questions this is asking you and answer them. Yeah, that's why I said look at them, answer them. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the one with equations. It says x equals -1. So it shows it in the graph. Notice how when you graph an equation, all you're doing is a dot. We're not thinking about if it's open or closed or anything. And what's the only possible answer for this? -1. X is only -1. That's it. Now, when we look at an inequality, it says x is greater than or equal to -1. So when we have our greater than or equal to sign, we said we have a open or closed circle. We have a closed circle. What does that mean? What did we say that means? The value is included. Very good. So that means -1 is a possible solution. And what are all the numbers that are greater than -1? And on and on and on. That's right. So that's why I put a closed circle on -1, and then I draw a line showing all the variables or all the solutions that are greater than -1. And if you're not sure, I like to kind of plug it in and say, okay, 1 is greater than or equal to -1. 2 is greater than. You can plug it in your head and think about what that means. Okay, so graphing an inequality. We're going to start real slow. We're going to practice graphing inequality. So I'm going to do these two first with your help, and then we'll move on to you trying some on your own. So the first one says, can someone read it to me? How would you read that? We got to practice reading them.
Z is less than or equal to 7.
Perfect. Z is less than or equal to 7. So because it's less than or equal to, are we going to do an open circle or a closed circle? We're going to use a closed circle. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to my 7, and I'm going to do a closed circle. So now I got to think. Z is less than or equal to. So are the numbers to the left less than, or are the numbers to the right less than? To the left, because 6 is less than 7, 5 is less than, and remember, less than is also like saying smaller than. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my arrow to the left. Now let's go ahead and try the other one. So when we look at negative numbers, that's a little bit more difficult. So you know how when we have whole numbers, right? You know that 6 is smaller than 7. If I were to ask you, -1, what numbers are smaller than -1? -2. So with negative numbers, the bigger the negative number, the smaller it is. Okay? So that's just something that we're going to have to do kind of practice. So let's see. Shaylin, are you willing to read that to me?
-4. -4 is less than or equal to C.
Perfect. -4 is less than or equal to C. So, less than or equal to open circle or closed circle? Closed circle. And then there's a little cheat sheet down here for you guys to check out. So I'm going to go ahead and put my closed circle on -4. So -4 is less than or equal to C. So what direction do you think I'm going to graph in if -4 is less than C? Which way? This way? So if -4 is less than or equal to, and I like reading it in the other direction. So usually when I have something like this, I'll rewrite it like this just to make sure I'm doing it right. So what it really says is C is greater than or equal to -4. So do you still think I'm shading to the left? To the right. Because if -4 is less than or equal to C, that means C is going to be bigger. So we'd be graphing to the right. So we have to get used to this as another way to read it. If you have trouble with this, you can rewrite it. You just need to make sure you're rewriting it correctly.
One of the things I realized last year is that students didn't understand that what you were graphing is all the things that you could put in place of C. So that graph is representing everything that C could be or Z could be. So when in doubt, figure out a number that would go for the variable and make sure you've shaded the right thing.
Yeah, like we did with the last one that we were trying to find the solutions, right? So I said, what are the possible solutions for, I forgot what the problem was. I think it was something is greater than or equal to -1. And you guys put in that 0 and 1 and 2 and 3. That would also work for this. So you could do, okay, so if you thought -5, right? Is -4 less than or equal to -5? Is it? Is negative 4 less than or equal to negative 5? No. Negative 4 is not smaller than negative 5. It's greater than. So that means I would have to change my number and say, okay, is negative 3, is negative 4 less than or equal to negative 3? Yes or no? Yes. And this is obviously, it's going to take a little bit of practice because you guys haven't really seen this too much. Actually, I don't know if you've seen this at all. Have you? You saw it a little bit. Well, that's good. Okay, so now I want you to try. Start with the first one, and then I'm going to come around and check, and then we'll move to the second one. So don't do them both in one go.
So the number will tell me that I either do or do not. And it says P.
Randy, I don't see anything on your screen. Ángel, tampoco veo nada para ti. Marisol, acuérdate que cuando no incluye, cuando no tiene la linecita abajo, eso significa que el círculo está abierto. Iván, I don't see anything for you. Jesus, Ruby. Luisa luce muy bien, pero tienes que acordarte que también necesitas la flecha, porque no incluye el 1 y entonces la flecha en qué dirección. Si P es menos que 1, significa que voy a delinear para la izquierda o para la derecha. Kevin, remember, what numbers are smaller than 1? Sí, señorita. Ok, so hablamos de el menos, el más, el menos igual, el más igual, ¿verdad? So, si P es menos que 1, ¿verdad? ¿Cuáles números son menos que 1? Ok, so la flecha lo que va a hacer es decirme todos los números que son menos que el 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the first one. It says P is less than 1. So we're going to start with the circle, and we're going to do this every time. So if it's the less than, is that going to be an open circle or a closed circle, Santiago? Open or closed? What do you think? Open circle. So I'm going to put an open circle on 1. So it says P is less than 1. So what numbers are less than 1? Is 0 less than 1 or is 2 less than 1? 0 is less than 1. So I'm going to go ahead and graph in the direction of the 0. So I like to pick a number on both sides and kind of tell myself, is it less than or equal to, instead of just the left and the right. So let's look at the second one. I have F is less than or equal to negative 1.5. So less than or equal to, Shaylin, is it an open circle or a closed circle? The second one. Closed circle. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to negative 1.5, the best that I can with the big fat marker. Now, F is less than or equal to, is negative 2 less than negative 1.5 or is negative 1? Negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and graph in the direction of negative 2. Now, quick question. Would it be helpful for us to get a chart to kind of help us with our negative numbers, which ones are greater and which ones are smaller? Do we think that would be helpful? I mean, for everybody. Yes? No? Maybe? And everybody at home, would that be helpful? A little bit? Some of us are like, yes. Some of us are like, I don't want to say. Okay, so you'll get that next one.
So they just do a number line?
Yeah, the number,
know
they
it,
always
number
have a
line.
problem with the number line. Remember, they never put the 0 in the middle.
Just want to make it easy.
But they don't like it though.
No, they don't.
Okay, so now we're going to solve. So we're going to keep the graphing element going because I feel like we need a practice with that. We're always going to need practice with that. But we're also going to start solving them. So I want you to take a look at this chart. We're going to look back at equations versus inequalities. Solving equations versus inequalities. I want you to answer on your screen. What do you notice about the two examples? In which example can x have more than one value and still be true? And we've talked a little bit about this already. There's so many buttons. So what do you notice about the two examples? It doesn't have to be anything super extreme. What do you notice? And you should already know the answers to both of these. What do you notice? And in which one is there more than one value and why? Randy, that's looking good. Marisol, no veo nada. Ángel tampoco. Yvonne and Ruby. Alvin and Yvonne, you're inactive. That means you're not doing anything, even less than what I can see. So you either need to get to it before I bump you out. Alvin, I'm not seeing anything for you. Carlos, no veo respuesta. Kevin, tampoco. Yair, think about that one more time. An equation. So with the equal sign, is that going to have more than one answer? Or is the inequality going to have more than one answer? Okay, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds because I want to get to a few of these before it's time for you to work on your classwork. I like it.
Might be a little more red.
I like it. Okay, so let's take a look at it together, but you're answering for me. And if my little pods were working, I'd have one on your disc. Okay, so what do you notice about the two examples? Who wants to tell me what they noticed? Yulivani.
You still saw the problems the same way, it's just the signs are different.
Okay, good. So Yulivani noticed that you still solve them the same way. It's just that the signs are different, and maybe when we get to graphing, the graphing is different, right? So in which example can x have more than one value and still be true? Who can answer that question for me, por favor? Not you, Ivani. Because she already answered the first one. So it's only fair. Okay, Jose, go ahead. Or you can start, and then maybe Shaylin can add some. What's going on?
I don't know.
Go for it.
The equation?
The equation of what?
It can have more than one value.
Okay. So if x is equal to, and does everybody agree that the equation can have more than one answer? No. Why not? What do you think?
Because it has to, it's like an equal sign, it has to be equal.
Okay. So if it's an equal sign, that's telling you it's just equal to what? That one number, right? But with the inequality, what is it telling you? That it can be more than one number because x isn't just 2, it's also all the numbers that are smaller than 2 or less than 2. So it could be 1, it could be 0, it could be -1, all of those different things, right? So those are things that are kind of different, but they're not super different. So I don't want you to think like, oh, she's teaching us something completely new. That's not true. So at home, make sure you've clicked on the submit button before I move on. So 10 seconds and I'm moving on to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10. Oh, just in time. Okay. Equation versus inequality. In this example, what is the only number x can be? So I want you to go ahead and answer what it can be for the first one. And what can it be for the inequality? And if it's more than one answer, write more than one answer. You don't necessarily have to write all of the answers, but
it have to pick you up or not? Or just us?
No, it can be anywhere in the room.
Put it back
You
here,
think there would
probably.
be good? I think it might be good there.
It's how the way it's
Yeah.
easily accessible.
Ooh, and then that would be nice.
Yeah. They make it harder than it is.
No, he just was having trouble with his text box.
Yeah. Quick question, why do you think text boxes on here, do they work in your account or
No.
are they separate?
Yeah.
No sense in doing
No.
that. Actually, I did.
I was looking at it and I'm like, it's good, because I mean, they know where to write, but
Well, yeah, I could just do the page, yeah. I like to see that each put it all in the same spot.
yeah, and I mean, it would work if it was like student-based lesson.
Yeah.
They could fill it in too. Okay, so does anybody mind if I pick on their answers? You don't mind? Okay. So you, Ivani, do you mind?
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, so Ulivani says that for the first problem, the answer is 2. For the second one, the answer for this problem is more than one answer because the sign is showing less than 2. So any number less than 2 can be the answer. Nice job. Randy went ahead and he started listing off all his numbers. So he says that for the first one, the answer is 2. And for the second one, we have 1, 0. I think that was supposed to be -1, -2, -3, and etc., etc. Marisol has the first one too. Very good. Go ahead and keep going with the second one. Ángel, no te veo. Jose, very nice. Jesus, very good. So those are all possible answers for the second one, right? I feel like you're counting by threes. Yvonne, I don't see anything. Ruby, same. There are several of you that I don't have answers for. Luisa, muy bien. I like looking at your work sometimes. It's nice. Did I put the same? Oh, I put it twice. One second. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve and graph the inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to solve an inequality. And this is all one steps. I'm going to write it off to the side so I have a little bit more space. Okay, so instead of running my line, clamshell your computers and pay attention. Yeah, you too. Both of you. Thank you. Instead of running my line through the inequality, I'm going to put it underneath because we're going to have to rewrite it at the end. So, just like if this is just a regular problem, what would I do first? Add the 7. I'm going to add the 7 on both sides because whatever I do on one side, I do on the other. So this gives me a 0, which I don't have to write. So I'm going to bring down my x, and then -12 plus 7. What does that give me? -5. So if I rewrite it, -5 is greater than x. So now I'm going to take my answer. So notice, I solved it the same way. Now I just need to graph it. Greater than, is that an open circle or a closed circle? What?
An open.
Open circle. Remember, you can refer back to your notes if you're not sure. Open circle because it does not include that number. So -5 is greater than x. Would -6, so if I were to plug in my numbers, -5 is greater than. Is -5 greater than -6? Or is -5 greater than -4? -6. So that means I'm going to graph in the direction of -6. So I'm going to give you another one that you're going to try on your own. Okay, go ahead and solve this one. So -1 plus r is greater than or equal to 4. Go ahead and solve. Do it on your notebooks because you're going to want an example and then you can transfer it to the computer.
That's not equation, it's inequality sign. So remember, it's not equal sign, it's a variable equal sign. Alright. Yeah. Yes.
That way, before you graph it, you can just ask yourself. Okay, so when I solved it, what did I have to do first?
You had to add one.
I had to add 1 to both sides. This gave me 0. And 4 plus 1 is 5. So greater than or equal to, is that a closed circle, or open circle? Closed circle. Now, is 4 greater than 5 or is 6 greater than 5? 6 is greater than 5. So I'm graphing to the right. I'm going to give you one more, which you're going to solve on your own, because I think we can. And then we're going to move on to classwork, which is just graphing today. Okay, go ahead and solve this one. Those of you at home, you're solving and I should see it on your computer. Yay, I think my glasses are finally in.